This is Birch reminding you to always wear protection. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm talking about an engine guard for the Rebel.
Perfect.
Welcome back to Life of Birch. This is Birch, and that's right. Today we are going to be installing a T-Rex engine guard on my Rebel 500, as well as the T-Rex frame sliders. Now you'll notice I already have the T-Rex frame sliders on the bike, and that's because I installed them a few weeks ago when I actually started to put a different engine cage on it, but I ended up not liking that engine cage because it was smaller and didn't offer as much protection. So I ordered that one, and that's going to go on today. But first I'm going to walk you through how I put the frame sliders on so that you have an idea how to do that as well. All right, so the first thing to point out is that these are both the same exact part from T-Rex. It's actually sold as an exhaust slider and only really meant to be on this side, but I wanted protection on the other side as well. So what I did is I actually ordered a 3/4 spacer for this side, because you can see here, this part on the foot peg bracket sticks out 3/4 of an inch. So I measured that and got one that matches on this side, not only so that it would stick out the same distance and help my OCD, but also because if that was not there, then it wouldn't thread the nut all the way on. So you definitely have to have one of those. I just got it off Amazon. It's a 5/16 inner diameter and 3/4 length. And then past that, the install for each side is going to be the exact same. You have your 2.5mm hex key right here that you have to loosen, and then this black Delrin part will just thread all the way off, leaving you with just this part right here. There's going to be a bolt that goes all the way through it for this part, and that's going to be a 6mm in there. And then this is a 12mm nut that you just reuse from your stock exhaust. So you tighten down this bolt with either the 6mm Allen key or the 12mm for the nut. Once that's tightened down, just thread this black Delrin part back on, and then tighten down the 2.5mm right there so that this isn't going anywhere, and then you're good to go. So as you can see, that's super easy, super straightforward. Same thing for both sides, only difference is the spacer that I mentioned. And again, that's going to be a 3/4 length with a 5/16 inner diameter. I got mine as a 10-pack off Amazon, but I'm sure you could get yours from a local hardware store. And so far I'm super pleased with the sliders. Haven't had to use them yet, but you can tell they're super high quality, which is part of what made me want to order the T-Rex engine cage, because of how high quality I could tell their sliders were. And for more info on either the sliders or the engine cage, make sure to check the description, because I'm going to put links to both of those in that. And remember, if it's an Amazon link, it's actually an affiliate link, meaning that a little bit of the money from the sale comes back to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but for every $100 that gets spent, I think I get like $2 or $3 to help the channel grow. So that would mean a lot if you do use that link if you order them. And now that we got the sliders on, let's go ahead and tackle the engine guard. All right, first let's take a look at the engine guard. Hopefully from the video you can tell how high quality it is. It has some really nice welds. The powder coating is really nice, but what I really like about it the most is the fact that it has these aluminum sliders right here. So if the bike ever tips over and hits the engine guard, the idea is that this is what's going to take the brunt of it, so you can buy replacements of this. Your engine guard comes out unscathed, and then you just swap these out and it looks brand new again. Another feature that I really like is the clamps right here that go around your frame. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but it actually has like a rubberized coating in there so that when you're putting it on, it has less chance of scratching your frame or messing it up, which the other engine guard that I got did not have, and I've heard people have issues with scratching the frame. When I went to start putting it on, I actually scratched the frame a little bit, if you can tell, but not nearly as badly as other people have. So that's a really nice feature to have to prevent that. The hardware is really high quality, stainless steel, don't gotta worry about that rusting. And then I may even paint this slider black at some point just to give it a more blacked out look, but we'll see how I like it once it goes on. Now for install, all you need is a 6mm Allen key for these bolts right here. These bolts are what's gonna hold the engine guard on at the bottom, and for that you're just gonna need an 8mm Allen key for that side and a 17mm socket or wrench for this side. That's only slightly annoying because of course my socket set did not go up to 17mm, so I had to go get one. And then you'll just need a 14mm in order to take off the stock bolts to put this on. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is come over to the bike, and you're going to see a 14mm bolt here with a 14mm nut on the back side. You're going to want to take this off on both sides because that's where the bottom of the engine guard is going to attach. So we're going to go ahead and remove that, as well as the one over here and then start getting everything mounted up, keeping in mind that this is also what holds on the horn. So that's going to dangle, and then you'll just reattach it once you put the engine guard all on. All right, so these are the bolts that are going to come out. You don't need to worry about taking them both out at the same time, because you'll see the engine mount is still attached up here as well as down here, so the engine is still stable with these out. And then you won't be reusing these. That is where these bolts right here will come into play that I was talking about. So you can just set the stock ones aside and make sure that you're using these. As you can see, they're quite a bit longer than the stock ones to make up for how thick the attachment point is on the engine guard. All right, so now we just have to remove both of these clamps using a 6mm Allen key here. Once these are off, we'll be able to start lining this up and attaching it to the bike. Now that the clamps are off, we can go ahead and start attaching the engine guard. I'm going to start attaching it at the bottom just so that I can have it on and at least stable before we start putting the clamps on. And keep in mind, these bolts that attach it at the bottom are two different lengths. The long one with the spacer is going to go on the left side of the bike, whereas the shorter one is going to go on the right side of the bike. So we're going to start getting that mounted and then handle the clamps after that. So it is kind of mocked up there, held on just by the bottom bolt, so you can start to see what it's going to look like. I threaded this on just enough that it would catch and not fall off, but you never want to tighten these all the way down until the install is actually done to make sure that everything lines up properly. This is the side that uses the shorter bolt and no spacer, and then this side is going to use the longer bolt with the spacer to make sure that the bracket clears this hose right here, and then also make sure that you get your horn mounted up right where it was as well. All right, so now that it's held in place with the bottom bolts, we're going to go ahead and grab the clamps from over here and get those mounted on. Obviously the flat part goes towards the outside, this part goes towards the inside, and then it just mounts up with the 6mm hex key right here. All right, we got both clamps on, and as you can see with this, same thing where I tighten them down but still has some wiggle room so that as we tighten these down, if this needs to move, it can. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down the bottom bolts all the way and then come back and tighten down the clamps all the way. And like I mentioned, these bottom bolts are going to be an 8mm Allen key on the outside and a 17mm nut on the inside, and then these are going to be 6mm. Once we get all that tightened down, we should be good to go. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's on there. It's all nice and tight. Just a few notes. I did end up tightening this down, not all the way, but decently tight on both sides, and then did the clamps, and then came back, tightened that down as far as it would go, and then came back and tightened the clamps down as far as it would go, and it's good to go now. And another thing to note is that I had a short socket, but you might want to get one of the deep sockets because you can see how much thread is sticking out here. It was just too much for the short one, so I had to kind of unhook it from the socket, if that makes sense. So you might want to grab a long 17mm socket to make that easier. And then of course, like I mentioned, make sure that you have your horn hooked up right there the way that it was before. And other than that, it's just straightforward. Looks good, nice and solid, offers plenty of protection. Let's come around the back so you can see the frame slider sticks out just as far as the engine guard does, maybe even a little bit further, so you can see that it protects the bike nice and good. One of my biggest concerns with the other engine guard that I had is that it seemed like if it fell over, the bars would still hit the tank. It seems like this sticks out far enough that that won't be an issue, so that's awesome. And while I'm not a super big fan of how they look and how square they are and how far they stick out, I know that's kind of what needs to happen in order for the bike to be as safe as possible. And the ones that I had before, while they looked good and were smaller, you could just tell that they would not offer as much protection as I needed. And actually, as I'm saying that, let me go grab the ones that I had ordered before so we can compare them real quick. All right, so here's the right side of the eBay engine guard that I had got, and you can see it is much smaller. So if it were to be mounted up, it would mount probably down there, and stick out about that far. So you can see it's going to stick out not quite as far as the T-Rex one, and also obviously offer a lot less protection. And there's been people that I've heard of who have crashed with these and the bike has been okay. I just wanted to play it safe. Better to be safe than sorry, since I plan on doing wheelies with this. Wait, did somebody say wheelies? So obviously these T-Rex ones are gonna offer a lot more protection, hopefully, fingers crossed. And you can just tell the quality difference also. So I'm super pleased with my purchase. And there we have it. Quick, easy, and straightforward install. And for less than $250, you have tons of added protection for the bike, which is awesome because you figure if you drop this bike even at a low speed, I'm sure you're gonna cause more than $250 worth of damage. So that added insurance is great, especially with all the wheelies and sketchy stuff that I plan to do. So keep an eye out for that, because now that the bike is nice and protected, we're going to start learning how to do wheelies on it and see how good we can get. So keep your eyes peeled, smash that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you don't miss out. Make sure to give the video a big thumbs up if you haven't already, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.